Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Libby chat. Today I'm here with Justine Alley Dowsett, the publisher at Mirror World Publishing. Justine, please tell us a little bit about yourself and about Mirror World Publishing.
Okay. I'm Justine. I am a publisher. I run a small traditional style Canadian press. We're based out of Windsor, Ontario, and we publish escapism fiction, which we'll get into more a bit, I think, in a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But we have books for all ages, including children's books like Libby, but all the way up to adults. And me personally, I'm also an author, so a number of the books that we publish are mine. I've published 11 books now. Yeah, too many. And yeah, I've been doing this for 6 years. We started in 2014. And then I guess if you want to know a bit about me outside of the publishing company,
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep busy. I run the publishing house, and I also write. And then I worked for tourism locally for about 3 years. I've recently had to get out of that because of the world kind of ending.
Yeah.
So the tourism industry got really sad. So I transferred I work for an insurance company right now, just doing administration.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, okay, so you mentioned that we'd be talking about escapism, escapist fiction, things like that. What does that mean, first of all?
Yeah. So we founded the company on the concept that books are an escape.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read a book, not everybody does this, and not all types of books are for this. But when you read a book, it's often to kind of take your mind off of the day to day. So we take that concept to the extreme.
Yeah.
So our books are all really engaging. They're meant to kind of suck you in. They're all set in another time, another place, another version of reality, just something really creative that you can disappear and escape into for as long as the book lasts. And we also hope that each of our books will kind of teach you something that you can bring, like a lesson that you can maybe bring back into the world when you're done reading. So it makes you think as well. It's not just pure, brain candy.
Right. Well, does this also mean a heavy leaning towards speculative fic?
Yeah, that's one of the genres, but like I take a broad definition of it. So there's speculative fiction, but there's pure science fiction or pure fantasy. But we also do romance, adventure, historical fiction, alternate histories, and we particularly love anything that's a cross genre. So when you meld two things together or more, and things that don't fit neatly into any box. And that's really the benefit of being a smaller press, is we can take on really unique, different things, take risks, and just see how they do. We don't have to worry about the big market, I guess.
Right. You tell me a little bit more about that, actually. Why and what sorts of risks you are able to take being a smaller press.
Yeah, so it's just about appreciating the artist and the artistry and looking into like the smaller niche markets. So like our stuff, we have the first book we ever took on that was outside of something that I had written it's an epic poem, and then each chapter is a different poem, and they all fit together to be a story, and then it's interspersed with graphic art. So it's a mixture of like a graphic art, poetry, but also a novel. So it's like it doesn't really fit any particular category. It's so unique. And then it's a post-apocalyptic story. So it's kind of futuristic sci-fi, but it also has dragons in it. And it's also like a coming of age story. So it's YA technically.
Okay. What's the title of that one?
That one's called The Watcher. It's by Joshua Panteleresco, and he's a local Windsor writer as well.
Cool.
And it's a 3-book series, nice. And all 3 are out. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other examples of that you've published? Ones that do not fit well in a little box.
Yeah. We took on a bestiary. So it's an art book, and each page is a different letter of the alphabet, and it'll be a little bit of this is our only really nonfiction book. But if you consider mythological creatures to be nonfiction. So it will tell you a bit about, say, V, for example, will be vampire, and it would tell you, some facts about the mythology and that sort of thing. And then it will have a beautifully drawn image of a vampire.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How do first, how do picture books in general fit into as escapist or escapism, and then we'll move on to Libby. But
Yeah, I've
first,
always actually found the picture books, like the really young children's books,
yes,
to be a kind of a difficult thing to define whether they're escapist or not.
uh-huh, exactly, right.
um, yeah, because I mean, it's all about imagination usually, but some books are more particularly about that than others. So I'm looking for the ones that are a little bit more creative, a little bit more out there. Maybe the art is really different. Just not something you're going to find on a standard table full of those kind of books that you're finding in a store.
Right,
So
right. So, okay, then Libby. What is it about Libby that makes it fit in with Mirror World Publishing?
yeah. So when I first saw Libby, I mean, for me, anthropomorphizing anything
Yep.
is a little bit escapist because
Mhm,
plants don't talk and that sort of thing.
mhm.
But what really makes it escapist for me is that you are on that shelf, you are living with two different plants, and you are seeing the world through their eyes. So that's not your regular everyday life, no matter who you are.
No,
So,
no. I mean, I suppose if you know, in your mind took your anthropomorphism to the extreme, that might be the life, a regular day for some plants, maybe. But of course, I guess that is escaping, right? You're
yeah,
putting
you
yourself.
have to take your mind and put it, in the mind of how does a plant think? How does a plant feel? What would be a threat or to a plant? Like what would they have to look out for? So that's using your imagination to imagine that existence.
Right, right. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the theme or the main theme of Libby, the Libivia Joanna. And I just wanted to ask you, well, does it strike a chord for you, and why? Whether it's the sort of self-esteem angle, or which is or the beauty angle, and they're wrapped up in each other anyway. So.
Yeah, so when I read Libby, for me, it has multiple themes. Like, I don't just limit it just to the self-esteem one. Like, that's the main one.
Mhm.
So definitely it's a message of, trying to believe in yourself and trying to be comfortable in your own skin and that sort of thing. But it's also a message about appreciating the differences in other people.
Yes.
And appreciating, beauty wherever it's found and the different types of beauty and that sort of thing. So those are those two messages. But then there's also
Yeah.
a more subtle thing that I didn't even really notice until after we were kind of working in the book, which is the fact that all the characters are female.
Yes. Yeah.
So and that it's the messages are not limited to women, but it is definitely something that strikes a chord, I think, with more women, and it has to do with the fact that women a lot of the times don't appreciate themselves or have different images of themselves, maybe, or like don't see themselves clearly.
Yeah.
So that whole theme, to me, I think it's the subtler one, but it's the strongest one for me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so do you think it speaks well at a time of Instagram and social media, and especially for younger girls?
It's universal and timeless for sure in
Yeah.
that respect. Because I remember growing up, like just learning about people having body image issues, or like people wanting to change something about themselves, or not feeling comfortable when they looked in the mirror, or seeing not seeing themselves the way that they actually are, so like eating disorders and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it touches on that in a very, very light, very subtle way, but teaches and instills that message.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like Libby wishes to starve herself or anything like
No.
that. Just feels
but
different. Yeah.
but if children can understand that basic concept that you are special and unique and different, and then that's a good thing,
Yes. Yeah.
and learning to appreciate those things that maybe you thought were ugly or different or made you stand out too much, to accept them as opposed to thinking they're awful. I think that's important.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. And what do you think about the relationship between Violet and Libby, especially at first, because we're trying to avoid some spoilers, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and right now we're going through such a time where there's so much division between different groups, and division between different people who look different or act different or belong to a different group or whatever. So there's kind of a message of acceptance and friendship.
Yes.
She learns to appreciate her And that's, and she prejudges her at first based on her
Yes.
appearance.
This
So
is
there's a lot of
Violet prejudging Libby, correct?
yeah, Violet prejudges Libby. Like when she first meets her, she doesn't give her a chance, and she just says, "Oh, well, you don't look like me, so I'm not interested."
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Mhm.
So coming to appreciate other people's strengths and
Yes.
that complement your own, maybe.
And what I found interesting actually at the launch, the book launch we had for Libby on the 1st, just a few days ago, when Tina was talking about Libivia jajoyana and African violets. I'm sorry, I forget the scientific name for those. I haven't had a chance to get that to memory yet, but she was talking about how their backgrounds are so different.
Mm-hmm.
Libivia jajoyana being from South America, and African violets are obviously from Africa, but their
Yeah.
climates are so different, and I, even when I was writing it, I was thinking about the obvious differences: spines versus soft velvety leaves and pretty flowers, but I wasn't thinking of how different their backgrounds are too.
Right. Their cultures and the
Yeah.
fact that they can coexist and be friends on that same shelf, on that same level. There's some imagery there that we didn't even think about, but are there.
Yeah, which is really cool to keep discovering new things about the book you thought that you finished,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You stare at something for years and then the forest gets lost for the trees.
Yeah, and I can certainly say that that would have happened for me a lot because we had been working on it for years, even before I even met you, Justine, at Word on the Street,
Mm-hmm.
and inquiring about what kinds of things you accept, and trying to figure out whether Mixed Twizzle's breakfast was a good fit for you guys, which it was. So
Well, something I should maybe take a moment to mention is that our submissions are opening up on November 1st. So if anybody who's watching this happens to be a writer or a children's book or an illustrator or something, we are going to be looking at things starting November 1st.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're also planning to do something kind of like this, another live event of some kind to answer people's questions. So on November 1st itself, we'll do an event to let people come in and talk to us and witness myself and all the acquisition teams' opinions on what we're looking for. So that should be interesting.
Neat. And as a writer that's with Mirror World Publishing, let me just say that it's a great publisher to be with, all of you writers out there, and illustrators too, but lots of freedom and lots of support. It's very friendly, and as I said, supportive publishing company. You're just about the right size,
Yeah.
It's just you haven't gotten out of control yet. Although I do have those wishes for you. I want to grow, but it's you're still able to give attention to each of your books in your works, and I think you will even as you grow, you'll still be able to.
Oh yeah, that's one of our tenets. Like that's one of the things that we're really just think is really important, because coming from a background of being an author, that support is what you're looking for. Like that's the reason you try to publish with a press, is because you want help. You want the help to get that book out into the world and to know if it's ready. I mean, a lot of authors, myself included, suffer from almost imposter syndrome, where you're like, is my work actually good? Like, I don't know. I don't believe people when they tell me it is, maybe.
Yeah.
And you read your own stuff and you can't be objective.
Yes.
So, we when people submit to us, we make a point of always responding and letting people know where they're at, why we're rejecting it, if we're rejecting it, or how they can improve, and kind of just letting them know where they are in the process, which is something I've never seen any other publishing house do. So
no, you give proper feedback, and that a writer can work with,
exactly,
whether you are inviting them to resubmit, or are accepting, or even if you're rejecting. So
exactly. And just let them know what their next steps are. I mean, do you still need to work on certain things, or is it just not our genre? Because that happens too. So
yes, of course. Yeah, that's it happens a lot, actually. Publishers, at least according to my rejection letters, anyway. If they're or maybe they're just being kind.
That's just that you don't know. So you want a publishing house that's going to be honest with you, I think.
Yes. At least I do, and I think ultimately most writers do. Even the very sensitive ones.
But we also try to be kind. I think that's important. Yeah.
I think it's pretty pointless to not give constructive criticism. Criticism can be very constructive and very helpful,
Yeah.
given in a friendly and, as I said, constructive way. If you're
Yeah.
just tearing somebody down, it's not going to.
There's no point.
No.
But also, I know what it's like to not like receiving criticism. I won't attend authors groups or writers groups for that reason, because I've seen some toxic environments, and just something that I personally know that I'm not capable of dealing with. So
Yeah.
I respect that in other people. I know that a book is your baby. You've essentially worked on
Yes.
it for probably a year or more, and for someone to just, you're being entrusted with that, for us to just dismiss it, I think would be cruel. So we just don't do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Another, you're just reminding me of some things here. I've been involved in in-person writing groups in the past, and it was mostly for scripts, but it still applies.
That's a different, yeah.
It is different, but it was funny. They would focus on the wrong things somehow. That it had nothing to do with the writing. It was like, why don't you make your character like this? And they want to turn it into their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that is my rant for the evening.
Well, as a point of advice for anybody who's thinking of getting feedback from someone else, is take what you agree with out of what you hear. Don't take every suggestion, because then you will lose your voice, and you don't want to lose that uniqueness that makes your writing yours. So don't let too much feedback in, but take what you agree with and what what coincides. So if multiple people are telling you the same thing, then look at those things.
Okay, that's interesting, because I will ask you, Libby had quite a few beta readers over the years. What do you look for? And what should a writer look for in a beta reader? Yeah.
Someone who's legitimately going to do the work, because you want to make sure they actually read it, they don't put it off, so they're reliable. That's important. Someone who represents your target market. Someone who doesn't represent your target market, you want to get the extreme opposite as well. I try to have a wide variety of people read our things. Someone who reads a lot, and then someone who doesn't read a lot. That sort of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that way we can cross and compare different opinions and find out where the problems actually are.
Okay, very cool. Swinging back to a theme of Libby's, the whole beauty thing. So the point, or one of the points I'm hoping gets across, is that beauty is an interpretation. It isn't a solid thing. How do you see beauty?
So I see beauty, and especially in regards to Libby, as kindness. So yeah. But no, because it's in your personality. It's in, what makes people like you, or how you are perceived by others. And I think a lot of that has to do with your personality, because we can't really choose our physical looks as much as we think we can.
No.
But you can choose how you respond to the world around you. And I think that really shows, how you are as a person, and how beautiful of a person you are.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And now I would like you, before we wrap up, I just wanted you to plug anything that has recently come out or is about to come out for Mirror World, and maybe repeat the bit about the live for when your submissions are open again.
Okay. Well, I just want to make a quick mention that Mixter Twizzles Breakfast is also, if you like Libby, or if you're interested in Libby, then also check that book out, because it's fantastic. And Beverly Bees too.
Yep.
But yeah, so check out Reagan's other works. As for our most recent release, it was the third and final book in what's called the Unreachable Skies trilogy. It's an adult book, but it's general audience. So it's not specifically to any one age group. But it is set completely on another world with no humans, and it's just its own culture and its own traditions. So it's true escapism. But what I really like about that book is it really kind of mirrors what's happening now with some of the difficulties our society is facing. They're dealing with a global shift in their world and their climate, and they're also dealing with a plague that just happened.
Wow.
And the recovery from that, and how it's changed their society. And then there's also this whole layer of prejudice, and how the rulers have basically kicked out anyone who was a plague survivor who had a child that was born without wings. So
Oh,
the story follows the former advisor to the ruler who basically supports the wingless.
okay.
Yeah,
That
so
sounds
there's so many
cool.
parallels.
Yeah, yeah,
And we
really.
started publishing the series like 2 years ago, so I don't know how that happened, but
Wow. Well, it's funny how these things happen, especially with semi-dystopian books and
yeah.
things like that,
But
you know?
it's not a dystopia. It's a fantasy sci-fi blend, and I don't know.
Yeah,
So
sure. I don't mean to label it that way, but you know what I mean? It's just like
yeah.
issues.
So if you're looking for something that is both escapist but also allows you to process your feelings about this time, I would recommend this series. It's phenomenal, and it will definitely take you somewhere completely different,
Very
and you
cool.
won't find anything like it anywhere. So that being said, the next book coming out
Mhm.
is October 17th. It's actually the fourth and final book in my series, the series that we used to launch the company. So
Right.
that is the Mirror Worlds series. And
Mhm.
the first book's Mirror's Hope. And then there's Mirror's Heart, Mirror's Deceit, and now Mirror's Despair is the final book.
Nice.
So this one has been like 8 years in the making, the whole series, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, my sister and I wrote it together. She's my co-author,
Mhm.
and it's a darker fantasy romance. So
Nice.
if that's something that appeals to any of our listeners, it definitely check that out. It if you like complex plots, if you like politics, intrigue, people kind of backstabbing, stories about anti-heroes, there's it's the action and adventure in there, but it's also the fantasy, and then there's a romance plot throughout. So
Perfect. Sounds excellent.
yeah.
Oh, and the submissions, just one more time.
Yes. So submissions open November 1st, and we leave them open until about Christmas time. So you've technically got until January 1st, but I usually end it at Christmas just because nobody does anything that week. But yeah, so as of November 1st, we will accept submissions for any age group as long as it's escapist fiction. You can see the guidelines on our website, which is mirrorworldpublishing.com. And we're going to do a live event. I haven't picked a time yet, but it will be on November 1st itself, which is a Sunday. And we're going to do an interview style kind of live event with all of the acquisitions team. So myself, my husband Robert, and then Sabrina, who you've maybe met through some of these events.
Just
Um,
sometimes the analyst comes in,
yeah,
yeah.
so we'll be answering all of your questions, as well as just having a general discussion about what we're looking for, how to submit, common errors people make when submitting, just that sort of stuff. And any questions we'll take and make sure you get an answer to them.
Cool. And I'll be tuning in too. Possibly asking some
I,
questions.
I'm hoping it will have a good turnout because I think it's valuable information for people. Even if you're not considering our publishing house, you can at least get an inside view on how a small press works and what they're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Something I haven't seen done, so I wanted to do it.
everybody tune in, especially writers, and it's going to matter.
Yeah, and
Thank
even
you.
if you're not a writer, you might learn something. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. True enough.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Justine. It's been great chatting with you.
thank you, Reagan, and congratulations on Libby the Libya Jadjoyana. I'm never gonna not stumble over that word.
Totally understandable.
Yeah,
And Justine, and congrats to you too.
thank you.